By now, I'm sure many of you have heard the news. A couple days ago, the night before yesterday, Buzzfeed ran a story making claims that Donald Trump had instructed Michael Cohen to lie to Congress. And I made a video about it yesterday because, like clockwork, not even 24 hours later, the special counsel, in a rare move, they say, refuted the story. Okay, when this story came out, it came out like at 10 p.m., so everybody's in bed. They wake up the next day and immediately have many Trump supporters criticizing Buzzfeed. And this is what the editor-in-chief of Buzzfeed News said. And, you know, I'm not trying to be mean here, but it needs to be pointed out what I would call hubris on the part of Buzzfeed News. This is from AM to DM by Buzzfeed News. Their editor-in-chief, Ben Smith, who I know, made a statement. He said, on Trump supporters, attacks on Buzzfeed News and its reporters. That is the last and weakest resort when you don't have anything else to say. So let's listen.
I mean, well, right now they're attacking us and attacking the reporters and you know, the facts are really bad. So the president's son, their friends on Fox News are launching ad hominem attacks on us. I mean, that's, you know, basically the weakest way. You know, you're an old debater. That is the last and weakest resort when you don't have anything else to say.
In reality, many people had legitimate points that need to be brought up, and I brought up some of them. And I am not a Trump supporter. I'm like I don't even know how you describe it. Trump annoys the hell out of me. It's like the easiest way for me to put it. But BuzzFeed immediately went to the defensive, saying, oh, it's the last and weakest resort. They're ad hominem attacks. Oh, it's just Trump supporters. This is what they do. Listen, the people criticizing BuzzFeed News were not just Trump supporters. Now, I'll say this, to be fair. This is a direct reference to Trump supporters. But why does that matter? Journalists were calling you out. In fact, CNN kept saying, if true, and apparently Ben Smith, you know, made a statement to Oliver Darcy and Brian Stelter. I don't know the specifics, but he said something to the effect of, oh, you know, like we stand by our reporting. We're good journalists. I want to talk about something really important. Now that we've kind of worked our way through that, before moving on to the next important bits of information, like the critique from the public, I would say what happened here with BuzzFeed was them getting played by deep state actors, okay? What probably happened, they have two reporters on this. They have two sources. The sources probably independently verified each other. So what happens is the journalist contacts a source in law enforcement and says, Michael Cohen said this. BuzzFeed then hears, like the editor-in-chief hears, wait a minute, another one of my reporters has that same statement from another law enforcement officer. We've corroborated this. Not enough. They decided to run with it anyway. They didn't actually see the evidence. In my opinion, it sounds like law enforcement agents within the Mueller investigation played BuzzFeed on purpose. Why? I don't know, but it sounds like they got played. Like the law enforcement people knew they were lying to the press. We're at a point now where there's been like 5 stories in the past year where they've published groundbreaking bombshell reports and then retracted them. And at some point, I think you've got to say enough. And that was my point yesterday. To come out and be like, oh, it's the Trump supporters attacking us. Like, no, hold on. Talk about everyone criticizing you, because the point I made that morning before, it's in my video, but I said, listen, BuzzFeed is asking us to trust them, trust these two guys who trust the statements of their witnesses. Like, that's a ridiculous game of telephone, and BuzzFeed presented no evidence. But you know what's really fascinating here is I believe it's this one right here. So this is from a Twitter user, Miguel Agranda, but he's actually citing Robert Barnes, who's a lawyer. Great point by Barnes Law. If this BuzzFeed report was true and Trump directed Cohen to lie, we would have known this months ago when Mueller wrote his report on Cohen's sentencing, not after he was sentenced. Anything said after sentencing is BS. Why would BuzzFeed believe this story was true and Mueller never wrote it up and it was not included in sentencing? This would be, I mean, everybody's basically saying this now. This is basically what you're saying is, in this BuzzFeed report, there was a conspiracy. Okay, why wasn't this brought up in Cohen's sentencing that this happened? How has it been 2 years with no information? And it's all based off that Steele dossier for the most part, which is absolutely ridiculous. So this is what eventually, they publish. A spokesperson for the special counsel is disputing BuzzFeed News' report. Let's pull up BuzzFeed News because I want to show you Ben Smith's official statement. And then I want to show you just how bad it gets for BuzzFeed. So I'm going to go ahead and bet they retweeted Ben Smith's statement. Maybe they didn't. Nope, just stories about dogs and stuff. And Lindsay Lohan. Good job. No, they did. So Ben Smith, who's the editor-in-chief, who I have great respect for, So I mean this in no disrespectful way. I believe that BuzzFeed got played and did a bad job, and it happens. And I'm not happy with what they did, plain and simple. He said, in response to the statement tonight from the special counsel spokesman, we stand by our reporting and the sources who informed it, and we urge the special counsel to make clear what he's disputing. Okay, he did. This is from Ken Delanian. He is an intelligence and national security reporter for the NBC News investigative unit. He said, I now believe I was interpreting this pushback too narrowly. The statement is less than clear, but it appears Mueller is refuting the entire premise of the BuzzFeed story, including the idea that Trump instructed Cohen to lie. So then we have this. This is from Washington Post. The Washington Post says they want to make it absolutely clear it was entirely refuted. This is not them saying one aspect. This is not Mueller saying it's just that one part. No, they're saying literally the whole thing is fake news. From the Washington Post, in a rare move, Mueller's office denies BuzzFeed report that Trump told Cohen to lie about Moscow project. So they say BuzzFeed's description of specific statements to the special counsel's office and characterization of documents and testimony obtained by this office regarding Michael Cohen's congressional testimony are not accurate, said Peter Carr, a spokesman for Mueller. The statement was remarkable on several levels. First, the special counsel's office speaks exceedingly rarely. And second, the statement seemed to drive a stake through a sensational allegation that Democratic lawmakers suggested earlier in the day could spell the end of the Trump presidency. But it was fake news. As earth-shaking as the claims in this story were, no other media organization were able to match them. So there's a quote in here. I pulled this up on purpose because Washington Post makes an official statement. Oh, man. Well, yeah, I don't know where it is exactly. I don't want to read through this whole story, but you get the point. Basically, within this Washington Post report, there's a quote where they say that basically the entire story, every aspect of it, has been refuted, which is essentially on par with what Ken Delanian said, that the statement is less than clear. It's Mueller refuting the entire premise of BuzzFeed's story. How do we get to this point that all of these news organizations want to parrot this narrative and say, this is the end of Donald Trump, this is where we call for his impeachment, and then once again, like clockwork, it's fake news. It just keeps happening as fake news. Maybe BuzzFeed shouldn't protect sources that lie to them. I'd be curious to know who the sources were. Maybe they don't even exist. If BuzzFeed put out this information that was fake, maybe their sources are fake. Now, I'm sure they have a vetting process to determine the veracity of who their sources are, but it wouldn't be too difficult to fake the identity of a source. So, I don't know. This is an interesting question. If you have a source, like I've never revealed a source, and I never will, but if you have a source in law enforcement that says this is true, it's a fact, and it's wrong, and you've got egg on your face to this degree, should you still grant that source the same protections when they played you? Like, you got played, plain and simple, hardcore. And I think the main reason is, my conspiracy theory, I'm not saying this is true, but I said this on my live stream the other day, maybe you saw it, that I think the main point of the Trump-Russia investigation is to make sure Trump can't fire deep state actors, right? So the deep state is kind of the conspiratorial, colloquial, like, nomenclature for what they actually call the permanent government. And this refers to intelligence agents and actors who stay in government as administrations change. And that means they have tremendous power and influence over over the government itself. When Trump came in, he was a big threat to the deep state. He could fire them. But all of a sudden, this Russia investigation thing starts, and now Trump can't because it would be obstruction of justice. Thus, they've protected their jobs from somebody who'd probably want to clean house. So as long as they keep the narrative going, Trump can't fire them. I think look, they did get played. BuzzFeed got played, plain and simple. Now, just off the top of my head, conspiracy theory, I'm not saying it's true. It's just an idea that I have. Don't take it so seriously. I'm just saying, what if the goal in playing BuzzFeed was to keep the narrative going in the press so that they can keep renewing this idea that it's legitimate, So now you've got regular Americans who have seen this story and not the correction, and they're going to keep believing it. And that's the point. That way, if Trump says, okay, it's time to get rid of these people, because we have seen people fired, we've seen FBI agents fired, we've seen their text messages, Comey was fired, and they screamed obstruction of justice, it makes it very hard for Trump to clean house. I think maybe that's the whole point. But I don't know. I wanted to do a kind of just a quick wrap up on a few ideas having to do with BuzzFeed News, because I don't want to do a main channel follow up on this, because I feel like I did a live stream on it. We hit the nail on the head with the hammer. Everyone heard about this yesterday. There's probably a lot of people waking up today who didn't hear about what happened. But I want to end by just kind of like re-rolling the thoughts of this video, the important points, the hubris of BuzzFeed, saying it's a last resort. We stand by reporting. That even now, after the story's been refuted, they're standing by their reporting. And even now, an NBC investigative reporter saying Mueller is refuting the entire premise. It's all bunk. And most importantly, why would this story be true in the first place? Okay, if this was true, we would have heard about it a long time ago. It just goes to show you that, you know what, man? They're too trusting. They are. And they should apologize. They should retract and apologize, plain and simple. But now we've got another fake news story, and it's the media who cried Russia over and over again. The more you say it, the less I'm going to believe you. Thanks for hanging out. Stick around. I'll have some more videos up later today, and I will see you then.